The air in Riverton Heights that afternoon was heavy, sticky with summer heat, and the stillness of the neighborhood was pierced by the sound of angry fists pounding against a front door. Earl Morton, a man built like a wall with a temper to match, had crossed the street not for a neighborly visit, but for confrontation. His boots hit the Carter family's porch with authority as he shouted obscenities that carried across the block. Curtains shifted, neighbors peeked out, and within moments the quiet community became a stage for Earl's rage. Inside the yellow-painted house, Elaine Carter's hands trembled as she pulled her son Marcus back from the door. Marcus, tall, athletic, and recently returned from college, could not hide the sharp edge of disbelief in his eyes. He had grown up here, in this town, among these very people, yet the hostility from across the street had always simmered beneath the surface. Now it boiled over. "Don't answer him," Elaine whispered, her voice shaky. "He wants trouble." But when the pounding grew louder and Earl's shouts turned into threats, Elaine cracked open the door to demand he leave. That was all Earl needed. He shoved the door wide with a force that rattled the hinges and roared, "You think you belong here? You and your kind will never belong." The words weren't new, but the venom in them sent shivers through Elaine's chest. Marcus stepped forward instinctively, his jaw clenched, but his mother held his arm tightly. Neighbors were already gathering on their porches, some with phones in hand, capturing every second of the encounter. Earl thrived under the attention. He kicked their mailbox, spat insults, and pointed directly at Marcus as if daring him to retaliate. Elaine did the only thing she could. She called the police. Her voice cracked as she explained to the dispatcher that a man was threatening them outside their home. The assurance that officers were on their way gave her a moment's fragile hope. Surely, once law enforcement arrived, this nightmare would end. But when the first patrol car pulled up, hope twisted into dread. Deputy Colin Reeves and Officer Brandon Keller stepped out, their expressions unreadable. Instead of moving toward Earl, who was still shouting in the middle of the street, Reeves's eyes locked onto Marcus. Earl seized the opportunity immediately, pointing and yelling, "That boy threatened me. He came after me. I was just defending myself." Marcus stared in disbelief. "That's a lie. I never touched him." Elaine rushed forward, her voice desperate. "Officers, please. He came here screaming at us. My son has done nothing." But Reeves ignored her plea. He strode directly to Marcus, his hand already reaching for the cuffs. Earl smirked, enjoying the twisted performance he had orchestrated. Neighbors' voices rose in protest, but Reeves silenced them with sharp glare. Before Marcus could fully process what was happening, Reeves grabbed his arm and twisted it behind his back. Pain shot up his shoulder as the cold steel of handcuffs clamped around his wrists. "You're under arrest for disorderly conduct and resisting," Reeves barked, his voice hard and final. "I didn't resist. I didn't do anything." Marcus shouted, panic seeping into his tone. Elaine's cry broke through the commotion. "Stop. You're arresting the victim. He's the one being harassed." But Reeves and Keller didn't listen. They shoved Marcus toward the patrol car, while Earl stood with arms crossed, the smug curve of victory painted across his face. Phones recorded every angle, every second of injustice. Capturing a story that would not be easily buried as Marcus was forced into the back of the cruiser, Elaine's knees weakened. She wanted to scream, to fight, to stop the world from spinning into this madness. But all she could do was watch as her son's freedom was stolen on the very street he grew up on. The ride to the station was suffocating. Marcus pressed his forehead against the glass, staring at the blur of houses and trees passing by, his mind racing. Anger war with fear, confusion with disbelief. He had always been taught to respect the law, to trust in fairness. Yet here he was, shackled like a criminal while the man who attacked his family stood free. When they arrived, the harsh fluorescent lights of the station only deepened the nightmare. Marcus was booked, fingerprinted, and placed in a holding cell. The cold bench beneath him felt like an anchor pulling him into despair. He replayed the moment over and over. The pounding on the door, his mother's frightened face, the officer's cold eyes, the handcuffs. None of it made sense. Back at home, Elaine was far from silent. She knew her son's future depended on her voice, and she would not let fear muzzle her. She called every lawyer she could find, her desperation growing with each unanswered message, and each fee quoted far beyond what she could afford. Yet she refused to give up. The neighborhood, too, buzzed with outrage. Videos of Marcus's arrest spread rapidly online. What had begun as another instance of harassment was now fueling a storm. Comment sections filled with anger, disbelief, and calls for justice. Strangers from far beyond Riverton Heights were beginning to take notice. But inside the station, Marcus felt none of that support. Hours dragged by like days, each second punctuated by the clank of doors and the echo of other prisoners' voices. He tried to steady his breathing, to remind himself that he had done nothing wrong. Still, a gnawing fear whispered in the back of his mind. What if truth didn't matter? What if this was bigger than him? When Elaine finally managed to reach him, her voice on the other side of the thick glass carried both strength and sorrow. "We're going to fight this," she promised, pressing her palm against the barrier as if she could reach through it. "You hear me, Marcus? You're not alone." For the first time since the nightmare began, Marcus allowed himself a small flicker of hope. He nodded, his throat too tight for words, and pressed his own palm against the glass. Whatever battle lay ahead, he would not face it alone.